I feel like we spent all training camp and all off season asking you, what it's going to be like with you and Ben, and what the offense is going to look like, what it's going to feel like. Kind of through these first 4 games, is there anything that surprised you about it? Is there anything you know now that you didn't know at the start?
No, I think not a surprise, but something that we've realized that once we get our first down, that we start rolling, and that's within each drive. So it's something that we're conscious of, something that that we're working our tail off to be at and get to, is get that first down each and every single time we go out there, and then from there everybody gets into a rhythm, everybody gets rolling, and even Ben himself gets into a rhythm with us, and so I think it's us just focusing on making sure we first play to second play to third play of every single drive that we go out, that we go focus on getting that first down, and then from there, like I said, we just start rolling.
Is there anything that stood out after you watched the tape of the game that maybe you didn't realize as it was happening, or something either with a certain play or the way you attacked them or anything like that, where you're kind of watching the tape and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that during the time that it happened?
No, I mean, I think in the moment, you're focused on just kind of next play, like you said, and then you go back and watch and you realize how many missed opportunities we had, whether it's penalties that set us back, or whether it's maybe just not been on the same page, or with maybe route concept, or with myself and wide receivers, or a drop pass, or us messing up with the interception. Us finding momentum is the biggest thing that I would say coming from that, and then obviously not allowing their best player to make plays the way he did, and it's hard to do that with a player like that, but that focus and things like that being there, and being accounted for. So nothing really surprise, just more of a little bit more realization of the game that we had was not obviously our best game, but we could have done things differently, and not meaning like play call wise, just technique and fundamentals and things like that could have put us ahead early on, especially with I think the 3 interceptions that we had, we were 50 plus in their territory. So just finding ways to get better, and over this bye week, and other than that, came out with a W.
Yeah, what have you learned about Theo since you got into the building? You guys came in as rookies together, but what's it been like to watch him grow?
Yeah, it's been fun being around Theo, personality wise. I don't know if y'all get to be around him as much as I do, obviously, but his personality is it's great. Awesome human outside of football, and then when you get on the football field, always willing to learn. I think he's grown tremendously, and I think as a development of his body, but also mentally about football, he's grown tremendously. So kudos to him, and having that mindset of I'm gonna keep growing. I'm not in a position I want to be in, and when my opportunity comes, that's when I'll shine.
You talked about the importance of momentum, and kind of once we get one going,
Yep.
then we big picture, having the momentum of 2 wins in 2 weeks and taking that into a bye where you've got a little extra time to think about everything. What does that mean for a team here that's still trying to kind of find themselves?
Yeah, I think the first 4 games builds confidence, and I understand the first 2 were lost. But us understanding how close we were to a win. Obviously, the second game, the score looks different than obviously what we think and feel, of actually going back and watching the tape. But I think the first 4 games, and like you said, these last 2 that we've had, a home win, our first home win, and our first away win. So I think it builds a lot of momentum and confidence. But we also, like I said, after the game, we got to go look at everything, and be truthful, for ourselves. The coaches are going to do the same for us. We have one-on-one meetings and things like that. Find ways to get better for the team and things like that.
When Ben told you going into the game that kind of the book on the Bears, or the reputation of the Bears, is that they can't win close games. Now, obviously, that's a motivational tactic, but how did that make you feel? And it sounded like guys kind of rallied around proving that.
Yeah, I think for myself, how did it make me feel? I haven't been here too long, and so it didn't. That's the history of the Bears. Obviously, last year we had a couple of those where we just couldn't finish the game, whether it was defense stopping them, offense going back out and not scoring, or us going down scoring, and whatever case however case may have went. So I've been a part of a few of. So myself, it's just trying to find ways to help the guys to have the confidence, have the belief, and I think that stems from the coach. Obviously, his belief and trust in us that I spoke about after we lost is still the same, if not grown. Even after the win. So his faith, his belief, his trust in us goes a long way. And those moments that those nut cutting moments that showed up in the game, where it was us having to march down the field and go score, defense stopping them at least long enough to get a long field goal, and then obviously special teams coming on and executing a great play.
You mentioned
Since you've gotten here, you seem to be at your best when the game's on the line at the end, 2-minute drills and stuff like that. What does that stem from? When did that first happen? Were you like that in high school? Were you like that before high school? Like what's the whole background of that?
Yeah, I think it's just the confidence that I've had in myself through the hard work that I put into myself, in my work and my craft, and I think it's just grown over the years. It started when I was younger, I would say. I think those moments, you go through a whole game, and there's not many things that the team is going to show you differently in those moments. I think, you at least I do. I feel more comfortable in those moments. I think, my heart rate drops. I think everything kind of settles in, and it's got to have it moments. And I think I've done a good job with that over my career. And those got to have it moments, and I think it comes from the hard work throughout the week, the belief in the teammates and things like that. But
Sorry.
yeah.
Do you remember your first game-winning drive ever?
Game winning drive? I do not. I should probably, but so many football games. I do not remember my first game winning drive as a QB. No, I do not.
Caleb, you mentioned after the game, early completions, fast completions are kind of things you guys want to get better at. How do you get better at it? What are the kind of the keys to getting that going?
Yeah, I think part of it is I think the people don't realize that the short yardage or the fast completions and things like that. It's also the same as those deeper routes. It's a lot of timing. It's a lot of the reads actually are a little bit faster, but timing to it, footwork and all of that, and then them obviously showing us something and maybe showing us something different on the snap of the ball. So it's just getting through reads, getting the ball out, us running the ball well, and just playing complementary football early in the games and things like that.
What's your approach to just the early bye week? Is it different than if it were later in the season?
No, it's still the same for me. I think work on my body, make sure that's ready for this stretch of games that we have, 13 after this. So just being able to prepare, take a day off or so, and let my mind rest a little bit, and then just because it's a bye week doesn't mean it's an off week. So it's just being able to come in here and make sure my body's right, make sure my mind's right, for those days coming up.
When you look at some of the fundamentals that you and Ben talked about all offseason, whether it's footwork or cadence, whatever, like what were you most proud of through these first 4 games, and maybe where do you want to keep improving?
Yeah, I would say my footwork, and then just being more comfortable with everything that Ben and the guys have thrown at me. Just being able to grasp it all, but also be able to go out there and play a game and play well for the team. That's most important. And so I think those 2 things, and then things that whether it's from game to game or in the game, where we call a play maybe a second time or a third time, and I made the adjustment to and the corrections in the moment, and then if it's game to game, you see something, whether it's footwork, and you go correct that, and you call maybe the same play or a very similar play, and you do the same thing you did, the same thing I did, but whether it's completing it, or just being in rhythm with the concept, and moving on, or whatever case may be. So it's just getting in rhythm with the plays, and how they're run, and I think being in season helps with all of that.
So it sounds like you're, in one sense, you're satisfied with kind of where you guys are, and in another, you're not satisfied with where
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where you're not satisfied. Never in a season where you're satisfied, because you got so many games and so many things can go good and so many things can go bad. So you're always wanting to be at an even state, but you do recognize where you are, and where you're headed, and you try to stay on that consistent path of growth. but not ever, ride the roller coaster.
You can kind of see where you're headed from where you are. If that-
Yeah. You can obviously, you wanna be able to visualize those things, be able to, feel the momentum of what's going on, but not let those things get in the way of what you actually have done and what you have to do to keep going in the right direction. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb.